I'm Niish, 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 and I'll be your companion as we slip into the liminal. Relax and sink in with an open mind, an eye for the curious and strange. Come, let go with me.
All right, here we are with another Cosmic Salon, and I am coming straight out the gate with this. As you know, anyone who's followed the different shows I've been on, and certainly the early days of the Cosmic Salon before we got sidetracked into some stuff, this has been something I have wanted to learn myself. I feel that this information is most important and more important than ever before, and it's time that a lot of us, at least this audience, start to get our minds around the nuts and bolts of all this. For those of us that have not done this or set this up or understand, however you want to say it, what all this trust stuff is. So I have been following this account on Instagram, and I feel that this is for me, the most clear messaging, the most down-to-earth person I've encountered so far, and I have talked to a couple people that have been brilliant as well. But this seems like the guy for the job right now as far as understanding this information. So I hope I don't mess up your name, Raymond. I'm going to read straight off of the website. So this is coming straight from the website, which is aguadiero.net, and I'll have Ray correct me later. So Raymundo Aguadiero is a person created by the living man with a birth certificate that reads Raymond Todd Surface. Ray was raised near Denver, Colorado, and attended undergraduate and graduate school at the Colorado School of Mines. In employment, he earned professional licenses in engineering and real estate, where he learned the faster you run, the faster the hamster wheel spins. He has an intelligent and beautiful daughter who he has tirelessly fought for in the statutory court system. Ray has a love affair with nature and is passionate about music. He once fancied himself as an athlete playing baseball for the CSM Ore Diggers, but now he gets his thrills on the karaoke stage. He owes a great deal to the people that have touched his life, including his church community and the divine healing of plants and medicine. Who cannot love a person like this? So, Ray, welcome to the Cosmic Salon. It is really a great pleasure to have you aboard.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. Kind of forgot about that bio on my website there.
Well, I think it says so much about where your perspective and priorities are. And this is such a big message in the world today, especially coming up in the world as it has been in the past, where everything is so, I don't know, it's the wheel, big wheel, keep on turning. So how do I pronounce? Did I pronounce all that correctly with the title Raymundo Aguadiero?
No.
I thought I messed it up. Please set the record straight.
Yeah, it's Raymundo. I prefer Raymundo. I should maybe put some accents on the name, and then Aguadiero. It's the DI in Portuguese as a G sound, and that's kind of an homage to my church group. But Aguadiero is water bearer, which I'm an Aquarius, so that's kind of the lineage there. And honestly, I was called Raymundo in college for a bit, and of all the nicknames I've ever had, that was by far my favorite. So
I will humbly say I apologize for messing all that up, but this is why we have you here. Let's start with the basics. And this is, for some reason, some people short out when thinking about all this. I know I have, and I still am confused by so much. And this is why I've been grateful to find you. I do have some questions, but I think we should get the basics out. So, for me, I already understand the basics of a trust, and you have really concise videos on your YouTube channel. Like that one's like 9 minutes long, just to the point. I was seeing it, and then there you are with the visuals. It just reminds me of like the Trinity and the three are one, uh,
Yeah.
with the points. And so let's break down these bare essentials before we get deeper into this territory with the trust, and then the the express trust and all that.
Okay. Um, well, the principle or practice of a trust is a very old thing. It's definitely something that the wealthy of wealthy people know about and have used throughout history. But it's very simple when you break it down to its pieces. It's extremely simple. It gets super complicated when you start adding stuff to it, and that's where I think a lot of people get confused. But a trust is, at its very basic basis, is a contract between two people or between two parties for the benefit of a third. So two people are going into contract and are going to contract in whatever way they want, however they want, for the benefit of a third party who would end up having a real stake in the subject matter and the assets that are part of that trust. So the contract is between a grantor and a trustee. Okay, the grantor goes to a trustee and says, I'd like you to take care of some stuff for this third party, for this person. And the grantor has to give that trustee something, anything of value. It could be a nickel, it could be a house, it could be a car, it could be a bank account. That gets put in to the trust and the trustee's control. So the trustee now manages whatever property or thing was put into the trust per the contract. And that contract is the trust constitution. Um, and so when that arrangement is set up, then you have a situation where the title is split. You have two different owners and two owners in completely different capacity. So one owner is the trustee, the other owner is the beneficiary. Now, the trustee does all the work, they carry all the duty, and they are actually called the legal owner because in the legal world and in the commercial world, they are the trust. They can speak for and do carry out the wishes of the trust. So when you create your own private express trust, you're going to want to be the trustee. Now, the beneficiary is the also owner, but they're like a silent partner. They have zero involvement. And in fact, they don't even have to know that they're party to a trust. So that is the basic arrangement. And that is like to know those pieces is paramount. Those three pieces or three parties in that arrangement are standard. Everything else that gets complicated is when we start adding pieces and clauses and different things like that. So,
And that's the stuff that has really feels so convoluted. And when other people talk about this, I don't know, my mind just starts swirling with, oh my God, this is so much. And it seems like a lot of paperwork and all this. So the grantor, who really in the end shouldn't have anything to do outside of initially putting in whatever, a nickel, a house, whatever it is, correct? And then they're done.
yeah, once they execute the Constitution and once they give and that trustee takes on the duty, the grantor can disappear. They don't even need to know anything about the trust. In fact, if anybody ever comes to them in the future and ask about it, they can just say, go talk to the trustee because the trustee is the doer. So yeah, the grantor's done. They just have to help execute the contract.
For people out there, as you said, it can be just a nickel to get this rolling.
Yeah, it's called the peppercorn rule. Um, the value you put into a trust can be as little as a peppercorn, and the trustee doesn't have to know anything about peppercorn.
Excellent. And so it's really the trustee that is the more visible workhorse in this trinity.
100%. Yeah, they do everything.
And then the beneficiaries can be more than one, or is it just one? So it can be a panel of them, that
And
right?
you can set up a number of beneficiaries. You can have them have different percentages in stake. You can have the lineage dictated, like maybe, you have a son or a daughter or one kid is your beneficiary, and there's a possibility you have to have, that's one that you have, the trust has to be vested. So a beneficiary has to be alive and named. So should a beneficiary pass away, um, then there should be, you can plan out who would be the backup beneficiary, I guess is the right way to say it.
When we're talking about the trustee, they act as the person in like what so break down the trustee seems like the one that needs the most focus for me looking at this. And I
Correct.
see in your slide here, trustee cannot grant anything to the trust. So the grantor is the grantor. The trustee does not have that power to grant to the trust, but they are also the one, like, so when we're talking about like the legal aspect of this, they're the one represented. Is there some sort of straw situation here? Is this a straw situation in this whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big aspect of it. So once you understand the basics of trust, and you really understand the three parties, and you understand that that is universal, the next step of understanding is understanding in what capacity the people that are holding the office of grantor, trustee, and beneficiary, when what capacity they're being recognized. And so that's the difference between a legal trust and a private trust. All right. A lawyer will create you a legal trust with your straw man, your legal name, your legal person. That's common. That's any lawyer will create you a trust in that capacity. The stuff I try to teach and show you is that you can do a trust in the capacity of people, in the capacity of a man or a woman, and not the legal name, which is extremely important as far as insulating you from the entire system. You want to make sure your trust is lawful and private, not a legal trust or a statutory trust.
Okay, so and we'll get deeper into this.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the difference between that and a express trust?
A private express trust. So private is also synonymous with foreign, which means it's not legal, it's not public, it's not commercial. All right. There are no commercial entities involved with it. Okay. The entire legal system you know of is only for your legal person. There's a whole nother world where people can interact without the legal system. And even the Supreme Court has established that the private express trust is outside of all legislation and statutes. So nobody in the government can control a private trust because it's a contract of people. And the entire system is based on deceiving people into their personhood and handling their affairs through their person. So getting into the private, and the private express trust is how you do it, insulates you from a whole lot of stuff. And so the express trust just means it's intentional and written down. So a private express trust, it just means it's a trust between people that's written down.
This is why I need like this step by step and everyone else does. So when we're looking at the idea of corporations, how does that play? Does this end up being a corporation or what's the difference here?
It's definitely not a corporation. You
Okay.
want to treat it like a corporation. However, your initial understanding, you're going to relate it to running a company. I mean, a CEO of an LLC or a business is very similar to a trustee of a trust. However, a corporation is a specific type of entity. It has an owner, a whole owner. Okay. Where a trust, the ownership is split. So there is no owner of a trust, an outright owner. So you can't buy or sell a trust. A corporation, a business, an entity, you can buy or sell. And a trust can own a business, a corporation, an LLC. A private trust can own an LLC. But if it's a corporation, that means it's a creation of man, a creation of law. It's fiction, which is completely different than a bona fide contract between people. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I don't want anything to do with the corporate world whatsoever. I know this will probably be later, but for me, the more I've gotten into this, the more spiritual it feels. Am I off on that?
No. I mean, that's kind of what really motivates me and drives me to keep doing this, no matter what, because it is a challenge to explain this stuff to people, especially when it's just brand new. But living a life where you're recognized as people, as a man or as a woman, is a far greater spiritual experience than being treated and living the life of fiction, of a corporate fiction.
Yeah.
So when you do this, when you become a trustee of a private express trust, you are self-governing. You are governing yourself. There is absolutely nobody above you that's going to tell you what you have to do. And that is a much more aligned life. I know there's a lot of spiritual people out there that talk about stuff and go through things and go to whatever, and yet they come back to their quote unquote real life and live a completely fake existence.
Yeah.
And so this is a multifaceted tool, a vehicle. It helps you get out of the system, protects you from a lot of stuff, from taxes, from legal shenanigans, and it aligns you with a more divine, more aligned life.
That's always been the route I wanted to go. I felt it always in my spirit soul and my connection with the the most high, but I never realized how deep in chattel we are. And as far as intellectually, I knew, but I have definitely come to really realize this whole thing is kind of like a slave system. Well, to me, it looks completely like a slave system, maybe more on the sharecropping side, but it still feels that way to me. And I just don't care what people think when I use these terms, but this is how it looks and feels. And so, with that said, how does this relate to taxes? By going into a private trust, a private express trust, how does that shield us from taxes? What changes here?
The big change is lawful money, which I'll get into in a second. But the thing that you have to eventually see, and it's a challenge even when you're on the process, is that you are creating something completely outside of all government. So all rules, any obligation, any duty that they try to impose on you is not for you. It is unconstitutional, and they do not have jurisdiction over the trust. They cannot force. And so knowing that when you function and operate outside of that system in a lawful capacity with lawful money, the rules like income tax don't apply anymore. Now, that's very easy to say. But along the journey, along the process, and the trust helps you get there, but you will see how completely unconstitutional everything is. And to be competent as a trustee also means you have to be fairly competent in the legal system to keep them
Yes.
at bay. But as far as taxes, the secret is lawful money. Taxes per Moore versus United States, which came out a couple months ago in February, they directly said and clarified that income tax is an indirect tax. Now, a lot of people don't know what that means, but indirect basically it will ultimately mean that it's optional. You have another choice to do something else than buy the thing that has the indirect tax. So it has to have an alternative. Now, the money we're using now, this Federal Reserve notes, wasn't created until 1933. So there was an entire money system without tax before that. So based on those truths, when you option out of the fiat money system, you no longer participate in legal tender. You are not obligated to pay taxes. And there are several Supreme Court cases that back that up. So you've probably heard that taxes are voluntary. I've heard it on Congress many times.
Yes.
But it's not the tax that's voluntary, it's the use of the fake money that is voluntary. So when you stop using fiat and you redeem everything per lawful money, they will leave you alone.
How does this play into this financial reset into crypto?
Crypto? Well, I don't think it has anything to do with crypto. And one point I gotta allude to because is why you brought it up. But you're a legal person and a corporation cannot hold lawful money. A fictitious entity cannot hold something that's real. And that's why you need the private trust and to be able to get a bank account with a private trust so that you can hold and deposit lawful money. Um, Back to the point on crypto. Crypto is a further derivative. It is not based on equity. It is not based on lawful money, any type of mineral or uh, gold or anything. It's completely generated through electricity. So it is a new money, but in my opinion, it is not much different nor superior to fiat. And you take a holistic look to it. So the way I tell people when they have crypto accounts is that whoever owns the crypto account, that's what matters. So um, if you can sell a crypto account to a trust, then the trust can own the account and you can do whatever you want in crypto. But usually you're trying to get it out of your legal name.
I think I saw you post a short on perhaps Instagram about that, about getting it into the private trust, the um whatever it is, XRP or whatever it is, so that your trust has possession of it, even though it's digital.
It's kind of a slippery slope
Yeah.
because I mean you to keep your private entity, your private trust in the private and not allowing it to be presumed or or what's the right word, labeled as a corporation. You gotta know what you're doing and not get too far into commerce. Now you can own things in commerce like a corporation. You can own things like a insurance policy, and you can own crypto accounts. Um, However, if you function and operate too much like a corporation, then you will sacrifice the protection of the trust. And so owning things like crypto or some of these other, some other kind of fringe commercial asset or whatever, you would be better off putting it into a corporation, an LLC that's owned by the trust.
Okay, that makes sense to me. And
So,
also I think most people are, from what I see, that are not into crypto very much. They're just hodling and holding, so they're not really like day trading.
so
So, okay, I guess we should get into the idea of lawful money. How
okay.
does one move around the realm in this way?
It's surprisingly easy. I mean, you do it the exact same way you do use fiat, except for a few little rules. Um, when you 12 USC 411, United States Code Title 12, paragraph 411 says that Federal Reserve notes can be redeemed for lawful money upon demand, which means that anytime you have a check or cash and you want to put it into your trust bank account, you have to endorse it with a note that it's being redeemed for lawful money. And that's literally all you have to do. The only other caveat is that your private trust bank account can't generate interest because lawful money cannot grow on itself. That is a fiat luxury. So your bank account, your checking account for your trust should have 0% interest. And when you deposit money, you can do a million different things. You could just write LM, 12 USC 411, deposit it on credit, but you're taking advantage of turning that fake fiat money that's only been around since 1933 back into lawful money. And so once you hold it as lawful money, they can't do anything with it. And how you earn and how you use it, they can't tax it because it's not of their system. You've voluntarily chosen to not use fiat anymore. And so it's important that once you make the change, that you stick to it and you don't commingle your fiat with your lawful.
So give me like a useful example of this. Say, Joe over there has a check that goes direct deposit to whatever bank. How does that actually work out then?
Direct deposit, I mean, so again, when you're a trust, if you just put money into the trust, like if you just take a random check made out to you and you deposit it to the check into the trust account, well, that's a grant. You granted that into the trust. Okay. And that's something you can't do because that will make it a legal trust and it will not be protected from all the statutes. So how you move money and assets into the trust is critical and it has to happen in an exchange or a purchase. Now, what that means is that if you have a direct deposit, that means that you're employed and you're still using your legal name, which is fine. But once you execute a security agreement, a private security agreement, which is a whole nother level, but once that's in place, all value generated by the legal name, by the social security number, is now all automatically an asset of the trust. So once that was in place, then you could direct deposit an employment check straight to your trust. As long as you put in the note somewhere, which you usually can on an electronic transfer or deposit, put some kind of note and just put lawful money, 12 USC 411.